Laura, you're next.
Oh, great. Good afternoon. Nice to be here. I'll be brief. I don't have a specific project to talk about like Thad does. San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority is a joint powers authority. We serve 28 member districts on the west side of the San Joaquin Valley from the city of Tracy south to Kettleman City and in Santa Clara and San Benito counties. And one thing that all of our members have in common is contracts with the Central Valley Project for some portion of their water supply, which gets delivered primarily to agriculture, managed wetlands, and urban agencies, from large ones, a couple million people over in the Silicon Valley, to small rural communities like Huron and Avenal. We have been experiencing for over 20 years now steady declines both in the supply of water that we're receiving and the reliability of that water, and have viewed increasing storage throughout the state as a vital tool in helping to remedy that problem. So we have been a participant in much of the conversation in terms of new storage. We have executed a cost share agreement with the United States to participate in the CalFed studies, Shasta Sites, Los Vaqueros, Temperance Flat. More recently, of course, San Luis Reservoir, which is right in our backyard. Increasing the capacity there has become a part of the conversation, and we would be willing to be a part of that as well. I think at the end of the day, though, the most important point that you can hear is the one that Thad made, and it bears repeating, and that is, whether or not these projects will be enough, whether or not these projects will be of interest, really gets to having, the need to answer the question, what do we have? And right now, we have a lot of ideas on the table, but we don't have a whole lot of focus. So Shasta Reservoir enlargement, I understand they began studying that in 1972. So entire careers have been initiated and retired in the time that that's been looked at. And the most recent feasibility study is unfortunately kind of based on outdated information, and looks at the project in ways that makes it hard for folks to stand behind it as is and say, yeah, we want to be a part of that. So I do think that Thad's absolutely right. Folks need to get real about whether or not a particular project's a good idea, and then develop very focused conversations around that and iterative conversations around that to be able to define the answer of what do we have. And once you understand that, I think it becomes pretty easy to figure out who's interested in it, how should the benefits trickle out. In addition to enlarging the capacity to store water in the state, which is clearly an important tool moving forward, I think it's also important to sit down and consider how are we utilizing the storage that we have today. We haven't built substantial new storage in decades, and decades ago it was able to satisfy with great regularity the project purposes. Today we see that in the CVP at least an inability to do that. The reservoirs haven't changed, nor any of the other infrastructure pieces. It's the regulatory environment that's changed and how we operate those facilities. So in trying to understand the what do we have question, fundamental to that is how is it going to be operated, and what can we do to ensure that those operations will be maintained through some period of time that makes the financing, the risk of the financing reasonable. I think this is a good example of a year when having a sites reservoir would have been fantastic, or greater access to Los Vaqueros. Since the first storm rolled in early February, we've seen on the order of 1.5 million acre feet go out to the sea. That's a pretty precious resource in a year like this, and being able to tuck 100,000 acre feet or so up into a sites or into an LV would have been fantastic. And so I think the answer to your question is difficult because it'll change year by year, but you can't use it if you don't have it. I guess is one observation. I think 2013 is another great example. We rolled into 2013 with above average storage in the CVP. Ag Service Contractor south of Delta only had a 25% allocation, and even that couldn't be held. Reclamation had to cut that allocation down to 20% in March. There was 2 million acre-feet of water sitting there. Where did it go? How is that used? And how did that get us in a situation that we're in this year? How much further can we have gotten in terms of managing the drought that we're in now if we had been able to take advantage of a year like a 2011? And so the point I'm underscoring is we've seen droughts come and go before in this state, and it's often been 2, 3, 4 years before the effect of that drought really becomes a serious socioeconomic problem. But now we're in a position, because of the way we operate, where we are at great risk very quickly. We go very deep, very fast. So there are, I think, operations and regulatory reform that could be examined that could better maximize the storage that we have today. Because the fact of the matter is, we can find the right balance, the cost-benefit balance that Thad was talking about, and that's spot on. We could find that today, and we could break ground tomorrow. And it's 10 or 15 years away before we have a functioning facility. So, how do we better use the capacity that we have between now and then? I also think along those lines, worth mentioning in terms of alternative approaches, is it's interesting to consider the legislation recently introduced by Congressman Miller and Costa to examine the feasibility of the federal government utilizing storage in non-federal facilities and conveyance in non-federal facilities to be able to enhance CVP yield and its ability to meet the project. So, there are other ideas out there that are new that I think deserve to be considered, how we better integrate through contractual arrangements the different systems that are in place. As far as, what the purpose of this storage would be, we've been very consistent and clear in terms of our commitment to pay for it if the benefit is there. If it's a CVP facility, we believe that the first priority should be yield replacement that under the CVPIA. And so the Central Valley Project Improvement Act passed in 1992 reprioritized and rededicated many CVP resources with the promise that someday that would be rebalanced or reset, and certainly any federal facilities going forward in the future should address that issue first and foremost. Other CVP project purposes, which include fish and wildlife protection and enhancement, also need to be a part of the mix. I think once we've gotten through those checks and have met those, the established needs of the project, then we can sit down and begin to consider how other non-CVP uses can benefit. Lastly, I think the earlier panel was making the point about the potential for local projects. And within our service area, we have a couple small storage projects that folks are looking at under the IRE Integrated Regional Water Management Planning process. There is a lot of benefit that can be had there. We're not a region that can be self-sustaining, but in terms of improving flexibility and making more water available when it's needed, small local projects are great. And lastly, I'd say, moving forward, it's taken decades to get here, and these sort of opportunities won't present themselves again anytime soon. So size does matter. We do have to find the right size, and the right mix matters. It's not just groundwater banking or just surface water supply, but it's, how can we take advantage of local geographic features to utilize one or the other, and how do we better integrate the systems that we already have? And I'll conclude there.
All right, thank you. Questions of R? I have one for you, but we'll wait till Mario is finished. Sure. Mario, welcome. Again.
Good afternoon. I'm going to have the PowerPoint package distributed to you because